And now, another exciting episode of the JoshCast. I don't know why I started it that way. I just felt the urge to. And now I feel the urge to sneeze, which is not a good way to start a podcast. Excuse me. This is not at all the way I wanted to start. Wow. That beautiful planning there. Maybe I'm a little shaken because I'm in the car currently. That's tough. I think to admit that I'm recording a podcast in a car, I feel like there's a limit to how seriously I will be taken. I feel like there's a limit to how seriously anyone is taken if they recorded something in a car. Like, if we find out that the Buddha was recording all of his wisdom into a recorder while in a Honda, we'd go, maybe he didn't know what he was talking about. No, maybe not. Maybe not. That's suspect. Now, let's question what I just said. What if it was a very expensive car? What if it was like recording a podcast while in a Rolls Royce? Would that change it? Then I feel like you just intrinsically hate the person recording the podcast. Who would record a podcast in a Rolls? Well, I guess a rich person would. And is it fair for me to hate someone just because they're doing better than I am? Yes, it is. I go to a lot of coffee shops. Change of subject. I go to a lot of coffee shops. Actually, you know what? I don't go to a lot of coffee shops. I go to the same coffee shop on a daily basis. That's how exciting my life is. And at this particular coffee shop that I go to, there is a large photograph, which is a close-up of a pair of hands grinding coffee. And I so badly want to open a coffee shop and only have pictures of anything other than coffee, just to throw people off. I want to open a coffee shop and have just pictures of steaks, and have somebody go up to the barista and go, "Excuse me, do you actually sell steak?" And the barista says, "No, dude, it's art. What sell steak? Where do you think you are? This is a coffee shop, clearly." And right now there's a limited offer on coffee mugs with pictures of steaks on them. Sorry, this is the other thing that I wasn't planning. I had these two huge sneezes right at the beginning of the podcast, and now there's just drainage going on. You don't need to hear this. But this is not at all how I was planning this. I need to get an air cleaner in the car. The car needs an air cleaner. That's what I need. I need one of those. It sucks the bad air in and blows the good air out. And then I think this podcast would go much more smoothly. Where was I? Coffee shop picture. Now, in all likelihood, the coffee shop company paid a photographer to take coffee-related pictures. I think it would be a lot more fun to pretend that there was just some guy out there who really, really, really is into taking coffee-related pictures, and the coffee shop company happened to find out about him. And he needs to be a Jackson Pollock type character. This is a very extreme, this is something, Steve Buscemi might have to play this, or this would like Gary Oldman would play this character. That's how intense this guy has to be. Walking around, seeing somebody drink a cup of coffee, and him stopping them and go, stop right there, hold it, hold what it is you're doing. Don't lose the moment. Don't lose it. And then he takes the picture, and then he says, You have been a blessing to me. Thank you. And he walks away, having freaked out everyone within earshot of the guy just drinking coffee. Somebody that obsessed, who's been traveling the world looking for the perfect coffee bean that looks right for the photo. And then one day, his friend, and I think the friend would be played by Steve Buscemi. His friend Steve Buscemi says, "Hey, Ricky." His name shouldn't be Ricky. Like his real name is Ricky. The coffee obsessed picture guy. His real name is Ricky, but he doesn't like that name. His name that he has adopted is Blood Ash. That's the name that he gave himself, Blood Ash, which has nothing to do with coffee, but that's beside the point. That's the name. He had a dream. He had a nightmare, and in the nightmare, he found out his real name was Blood Ash. So Blood Ash has all these coffee-related photos, and he lives in an apartment, I want to say, in the Valley. That's where I see this happening. This is not a Beverly Hills dude. So Blood Ash has all these pictures in the Valley, and his neighbor, played by Steve Buscemi, and Steve Buscemi cares about Blood Ash. Blood Ash, he's not very sociable. He's not very nice to people. But Steve Buscemi, he's got a soft spot. Steve Buscemi, that character, I think he's an accountant, possibly bisexual, who just has a wide open heart, and he knocks on the door, and Blood Ash opens the door and goes, "This better be coffee related." And Steve Buscemi says, "Listen, I know you don't like to be disturbed, but I happen to notice there was an article in the paper that." This big-time coffee company, they're looking for coffee-related photos. And I just thought, you might be able to make some money off of this stuff. And Blood Ash says, "You think I'm in this for the money? You fool. You think," and he grabs him by the shirt collar, which I think that Steve Buscemi got that shirt from It's a Wrap. So it's a used shirt already, and this really rips the shirt. And Blood Ash is just enraged. This isn't about the money. This isn't about the money. This is about the coffee. And Steve Buscemi says, "Dude, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to help," and kind of cowers off. And then Blood Ash finds out he has a son he never knew he had. And he suddenly, just one day, his wife, or his ex-wife, they were married briefly, but she couldn't, basically, he had to choose between the coffee and love, and he went with coffee. And we find out that his wife has just left this boy, their son, at his doorstep. And he suddenly realizes he's a father, and this changes his perspective. And he goes and he knocks on Steve Buscemi's door, and he says, "Listen, I'm sorry I did that to you. I'm sorry I got upset, but could you give me the name of the coffee company?" And Steve Buscemi's like, "Dude, it's no problem. The shirt was from It's a Wrap. I paid $9 for it. I'll get another one." He gives him the slip of paper, and he goes and he ends up selling he sells all of his pictures. The coffee company, this was the eye they were looking for. They loved it. The man who found beauty in an old woman pulling beans off of a plant. And the guy suddenly is able to afford enough money to buy a house, take care of the kid, and every Sunday he and Steve Buscemi have lunch, and that happens until they're old men. And Blood Ash dies first, and Steve Buscemi and the son who's now grown up, they're standing at his grave. And Steve Buscemi says, "I lied. That shirt was actually really expensive that he tore, but I didn't want to add fuel to the fire." And that's the end of that. So I think that's how I'd like it to be, but probably more realistically, the coffee company just hired someone to take pictures, which is cool. That's fine. I guess I think about this because the photographers who take these pictures, maybe they enjoy doing it, but I can't help but wonder if they have pictures that they genuinely want to take that, wouldn't it be nice if a big corporation would put those photographs on display, whatever they are. Although it could be, if these photographers are particularly liberal, they might be showing pictures of how mass-producing coffee is destroying the planet, which would go kind of counter to what the coffee company is trying to sell. So that probably wouldn't work out. And you know what? Maybe the coffee company's not destroying the planet. I don't know. I suspect anything larger than a mom and pop store, I suspect, is destroying the planet. That's my theory. Coffee. It's been a pretty coffee heavy podcast that we've talked about. It's been pretty coffee heavy. Pretty coffee heavy. Now that's me quoting Larry David, or doing the Larry David bit. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to be my own Jew. That's really important to me, to be my own Jew. So we've got this. I can't. And then I'm wondering who. Actually, now that I think of it, who's the person in the picture? Whose hands are those? And do they know that there's a picture of their hands that some schmuck is talking about right now on a podcast? Do I have to pay that? Let's say this podcast blows up. I don't think I have to pay that person royalty. I'm sure they signed a waiver saying you can use my hands making coffee for promotional purposes only. Here's my other question. I mean, since all these photographs are showing pictures of either making coffee, coffee beans, coffee-related stuff, why not go even further? Because surely there are people who work at the coffee company who are in accounting and spend all day on a spreadsheet. Let's show a picture of them. Let's get a picture of a guy on a spreadsheet. And then you go up to the barista and go, "What's that?" And he says, "That's our head of accounting." I mean, he's an equally important part of the team. There's beauty in those spreadsheets, too. We brought one of the world's greatest spreadsheet photographers who is obsessed with spreadsheets to bring that picture. You should be thanking us. We should be charging twice as much for this coffee. There are certain places of business where you cannot have a photograph of the product or the product being made. Like, you don't want to go into a Taco Bell and see a really high quality photo of an animal being put in a thresher. That wouldn't be. It's not gonna get anyone. That's not gonna be helpful for anyone in that situation, except maybe the photographer. Even then, I'm not sure. But it really, it goes to show you, though, how much that everything around us that we see is connected to capitalism and advertising. Everything. I mean, the reason why there's coffee-related pictures in the coffee shop, I would assume, is that it's kind of this part of this subliminal advertising that we want the customer to be thinking about how fresh our coffee is. That these photos make it seem like, we just picked the coffee bean yesterday. And there's a very specific reason why those pictures are put there like that. Wouldn't it be nice if the coffee company put actual art, just bought art that was good for the sake of art and put that up? That'd be cool. But again, what would that, that would involve not worrying about capitalism, I suppose. And we can't have that. We cannot have that. No, sirree, Bob. We cannot have that. I just wish, I respect capitalism. I guess I wish sometimes it, actually, when I think about it, in the world of Star Trek, which takes place in a utopian society that is not capitalist, their coffee shops could do that, could have just regular artwork. You never see that in Star Trek, though. Now, whereas the Death Star in Star Wars, they're totalitarianism. They're totalitarian, so they don't need to have. They're not trying to sell anything because I think the way their economy works, everything is so tightly controlled. So socialism or totalitarianism, they don't need to worry about how they decorate the coffee shops. It's only capitalism where there needs to be an eye for selling at all possible points in time. Which brings an interesting point of how creepily close the concept of utopia and totalitarianism, how close those concepts actually are, and yet so far away. And that maybe we should be celebrating capitalism even more because it's flawed. Maybe the only way to feel okay is to know that the situation you're in is inherently flawed. Maybe that's really the way. Like, kind of, we live in a world. The capitalism feels to me like a bunch of people who are like saying to each other, "Listen, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to gouge you as much as I possibly can. But I'm not going to kill you." Like that's a win in many ways. Maybe that's the best way to go about it. Maybe there needs to be a system in play. The best systems are the systems where nobody kills each other and everyone mostly likes each other, but at the same time, we're always looking to take off that 10%. I feel like I can't adopt, because I'm trying to be a comedian. I should say I am a comedian, but I don't feel like I can say I'm a comedian until I'm making money as a comedian and sustaining myself as a comedian. Before that, I feel like I'm trying to be a comedian. I don't know. We'll let the viewership of this podcast tell us whether or not I'm a comedian, shall we? And I don't feel like I can't do the move that the Coffee Bean does. Like, I wouldn't want to bring someone into my apartment and there's just photos of me on stage in my room. That would be creepy. That would be very, very creepy. You can't do that. No, it's got to be, you've got to be a larger corporation to do that. Well, how do I tie this together? How do I wrap this up? How do I end this with another sneeze? That'd be the way to do it, but I don't have that kind of control. I think my point about the coffee shop picture is this. I'm tired of coffee shop pictures in coffee shops. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the obvious. I want to be surprised. I want it to walk into a coffee shop and, or you know what? Maybe it's this too. Maybe even more specifically than this is I'm tired of advertisers pretending not to advertise when they're advertising. Like, I want to walk into a coffee shop and I want to see instead of the picture of someone grinding coffee, I want there to just be a sign that says, "Please buy more." Like, we know you just bought something, but buy something else, please. Buy more. Whatever you think, buy more. Please buy more. We want to get richer. That's why we're here. You know it, I know it. Buy more. Please, just buy more. That's what I'd like to see. I'd feel better about that. I might actually buy more if I saw that. Finally, someone being honest.